We have a very special guest in studio today. He is the owner of Proving Ground Coffee Roaster and Cafe, the great and powerful Jacob Gonzalez. Welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Hey,
sir. Thanks for joining
Yeah,
us.
man, we're happy to have you. So yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking before the show, but you grew up in a family of restaurant owners. Now you're running a coffee roasting business. What's the craziest lesson or story that still sticks with you today from your early days in the restaurants?
Ooh, there's a lot. I guess like working with my dad growing up, in restaurants and kind of just filling in.
What kind of restaurants?
So my dad owns Mexican restaurants. He also has like a wine bar and a juice bar, and
cool.
those are kind of more
Which
recent
ones?
bars. It's in downtown Belleville. So Groove
Mhm.
is a wine bar, Maya juice bar, and then he has Casa Maria and Casa Maria Express, which is like a food truck, and then like a smaller sit-in kitchen type of deal. Yeah, so growing up, he had different restaurants at the time, and what's nice is working with him. He kind of instilled that lesson early on, like, hey, if you want to make money, come work.
Yeah.
So it was, thankfully I don't have any resentment, working young, because it was always like, oh, if you want to make some money, you can come work and you'll make some money.
Like, what
Yeah.
did he have you doing when you're like really young? Bussing tables? Or?
Yeah, bussing tables. I'm sure you can find a picture of me somewhere sitting on like a milk carton doing dishes, So I've seen it somewhere. I don't know where it is. So just that lesson of like, well, if you want to make money, you can work, and there's always like opportunity, to make money, or there's always opportunity to find work. And there's a lesson like his father had passed to him that, he had told me at an early age, and it's like really simple, but it just kind of sticks with me, where it's like, a hardworking person is welcome anywhere, a lazy person is welcome nowhere. It's kind of like the moral of it. And so
I
it
like
kind of
that.
sticks with me. Yeah. So it's just simple. It's not like anything necessarily profound, but sometimes I think about it when it's like, oh, I'm kind of dealing with something I don't want to do, or something where I'm like, well, this isn't a big deal. It's just like kind of me being hesitant on doing it. I'm like, oh, let me just power through it. So yeah, I guess those are kind of like two lessons, but yeah, those have stuck with me.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so from there, you started. When did you start Proving Ground?
2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like right before COVID, we had kind of gotten in the talks about it. And at the time, a family friend of ours had owned it. And I'd been going there since their opening originally in 2017. And they had a great food menu, and I loved going there, and I'd bring people there all the time. And so when they were kind of looking at selling and, moving on to something else, I had talked to my dad about it because he had told me it was happening. And I was like, hey, man, I think that'd be a good opportunity for you. I know you have no experience doing like
Coffee
or breakfast, but I know you're looking for something different. And I was like, I think there's a lot of potential there. And I wasn't even thinking about like for myself at the time. I was going to school at community college, and I was like, he had a friend of his that I knew. I was like, I think this could be a really good venture for him. I was like, it has so much potential. And so he had talked to him, and he's like, oh, I know nothing about coffee or breakfast food. I have no interest in doing it. And I was like, okay. And then COVID had happened, and everything had kind of switched to online. And I was kind of hesitant on like continuing forward with, school at the time, and that they were still looking for something. And he was like, do you have any interest in trying it? And seeing, or would you be interested in, going in on this? Because at the time, what they were talking about doing was like, oh, you can kind of buy in and buy out. So it was a pretty safe thing to get into, it seemed like. And, we talked back and forth at the time, and I had no plans on getting involved in restaurants at all. Like growing up and waiting tables and talking with people who would come in, they're like, oh, are you going to take over your old man's business, later on? And I was like, no, never getting involved in restaurants, And so this being a restaurant, but also having like avenues to do something else, it felt different to me. And I was also like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing right now anyways, so this is like a really good launching point for me, it seems like.
Right,
So I'll take a swing at it.
Yeah, we'll definitely learn some lessons.
Well, do you guys? I mean, is it like a breakfast place too? So like you guys are serving? You have a kitchen in the back cooking breakfast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So full breakfast and lunch.
Not like those, not like a lot of these boutiques where they just have stuff that you can, like muffins and things that you can order, but you can actually order meals.
Yeah. So we have like a full grill and hood.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
So it's a full kitchen. It's a weird setup because it's a very small thing, and we've expanded, since then. But yeah, and just really tight space. But yeah, we have a full breakfast and lunch menu. So
That's awesome.
Very cool. And you started that you started taking that over during COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was there was a lot to like navigate with at the time. obviously.
But it's a good time to learn. You're not as busy, and at least you can get in and get your hands dirty a little bit and kind of get a feel for things.
100%, 100%. There was also just like confusion amongst people who were coming in and being like, oh, like is, such and such here? And I'm like, oh, actually, this happened and stuff. And
I own it now.
yeah. So can I help you?
You can talk to me.
Hi, I'm Jake.
You can talk to me.
Would you go by Jake or Jacob? What is it?
Either one's fine. It just depends who's talking to me.
Yeah.
Growing up, people would call me Jake, and if you guys, that's totally cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. And so, what's the draw for you and your family to Columbia? I love Columbia. Columbia's a great little town, but what's the draw? And it's not like you talk to people here in St. Louis and they want to like open up something here in St. Louis. It was already established there, but what's the draw with your family into Columbia and the restaurants there?
Yeah. So my dad, my family's, like my aunt and uncles and stuff, they still have some restaurants in St. Louis, but my dad had previously had restaurants in St. Louis. And then, he was looking for something kind of after like that 2008 recession, looking for an area, and he found Belleville at the time. And, talking with him, like when he was looking to go into that, he was like, what are your thoughts on it? And I was like, oh man, like not knowing anything about the area, but we went there. And I remember it was like a rainy day and we were scoping out the restaurant. It was, run down at the time and stuff. And the town looked super dead. And I was like, yeah, man, I don't think this is going to be a good avenue for you, and stuff. Thankfully he didn't listen to me and decided to go through with it anyways, because it ended up working out really well for him. But, he ended up really liking the area there and the, clientele that would come in and the community.
It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody type thing.
Yeah. And it just like, there was a good community that consistently would show up, and it just kind of grew over time. And, so kind of, I guess in his theory with it would be like, oh, something similar with Columbia, even though, maybe it's a little more tighter knit. They don't have as big of like a main street kind of scene going on. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have much knowledge about Columbia at the time, just going there as a customer and, seeing what was happening and looking at the space and kind of imagining what I could do with it. When I was considering getting involved, I went through and kind of scoped it out a couple times, with this perspective, not as just a customer anymore, just kind of looking around, seeing what I think I could improve, what could be done to draw in more, how many people are actually coming in. And I was like, oh, like I think what I'm seeing here, I think it could grow. And I think there's definitely a lot of potential here just based off of how many people are in the area for, it to grow into something bigger. So I didn't have any background knowledge on Columbia at the time. But since then, I mean, Columbia's been awesome. Like it's been a great community of people. I love Columbia. It's super easy. Yeah. Super easy to work with the city when it comes to things, and just a really easygoing community as far as like, been very hospitable towards me. So
that's awesome.
And you mentioned you had a vision going into it. Have you been able to replicate that vision, or have you been able to improve on that vision? What was it what was the place when you first saw it to where it is now?
Yeah. So at the time there were just like little things, at the time I was like, I wish I could show a photo of it, but it was kind of a gray box. Like there just wasn't much.
If you got pictures, you can
design.
send. We'll get
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, okay, maybe throw up a little more decor, make the vibe a little more ambient, I was like, and there wasn't any setup for playing music either. And I was like, well, right now I notice it's kind of like weird talking with who I'm with at the time, just like little things like that, and it's like, even as a customer, if you don't notice those things like specifically, it kind of, impacts your experience in a way of like, oh, you subliminally think maybe you won't meet there again for lunch, or something, because it's like, oh, this person's conversation is kind of, shadowing into mine, so little stuff like that. And I was like, I think, marketing it a little bit better, speeding up the, some stuff in the kitchen, and coming from like working in restaurants specifically my whole life, I realized there was an issue there with things, because I was like, oh, it's taking a little long for the food to come out.
Times, where are we at here?
Yeah. And so I was like, it's probably like the grill, like need a bigger grill, because I'm sure they're limited on space, because I knew beforehand, like just looking at it, I was like, the kitchen's tiny, so I'm like, sure there's some equipment that could be swapped out that could really speed things up. So stuff like that. And since then, yeah, I've implemented a lot of it. It's changed course so many times actually like working in it, and it would be amazing if I could go back in time, and like have this experience to like just kind of speed rush that. Yeah. But there's so much stuff you can't learn until you're in it,
Totally.
And like, I remember, like the first day I'd taken over, fully, and the previous owner had kind of like walked me through like, where things were over the past few weeks and how the systems go and blah, blah, blah. And then was like middle of the day, and he's like, all right, he's like, I'm gonna head out, and stuff. He's like, good luck. I was like, oh.
You got this.
Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. And we were closing, and I sent the rest of the staff home, and I was finishing doing everything I need to do. And I couldn't find the last set of lights. And I was like, where are these lights at? And
how to turn them off?
How to turn off the lights. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, ugh. And so I called him. I was like, hey, I'm looking for the lights in like the dining area, and he's like, oh yeah, it's behind this fridge over here, and they're hidden away and stuff. And I was like, okay, but it was just kind of stuff like that. And that's a memory that's always stuck with me. I play in my head where it's like, because I remember thinking at the time, like, ooh, like there's a lot here that I am ready for, and a lot of experience I have in one sector of things, but there's just so many unknowns that you can't plan for. And, that's why I enjoy it too. It's a lot of like troubleshooting and figuring problems out, but it's like, there's just so many things you run into that you just can't plan for until you actually get there.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started?
I was 19.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
good for you.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, I know you said you were a big customer before of Proving Grounds before you actually took over. Were you really into coffee, or like, was this just like, have you just learned a ton about coffee since taking it over?
Yeah. So, originally that place is what kind of got me into coffee, and it didn't bring me, I wasn't like super into coffee or anything like that, but it gave me exposure of like, oh, coffee comes from different places.
Yeah.
Oh, I can drink black coffee by itself, because I didn't know anything about coffee. I didn't know what's a latte, what's a macchiato, cappuccino. I don't know what. I'll just take a regular coffee. Like right. I remember before, I was at a hotel and they had a machine, and it was like Americano. Anytime I'd go to a shop, I'd always order an Americano because it's like, I think that's like regular coffee.
Just like a regular black coffee, right?
Yeah. And it kept spitting out just a little bit, and I was like, just spitting out a little bit. I was like, the machine must be messed up. So I just kind of kept, and I'm not realizing it's spitting out shots of espresso. And so I had like a 12-ounce mug of espresso, and I was like, oh, is this some strong coffee?
Yeah, some 1,000 milligrams of caffeine.
I'm not going to sleep for a week.
Yeah. So that was my knowledge going into it. And I was like, so yeah, going there, and they're having a selection of coffee and this thing called pour over at the time. And I was like, what's a pour over?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you can order like, whatever type of coffee you want, and we'll brew it like this. And this is important because it extracts really well, and you can taste, the origin of this, and this origin is going to be different than this one because it's going to be fruity, and this one's going to be more citric. And I was like, whoa, okay. This is fun. This is cool. So I mainly went there for the food originally. And then that was kind of like a byproduct of that, where I was like, oh, like I can get a meal. At the time I thought it was like super healthy food, and it is like compared to the areas at the time. I was like, man, like it felt very fueling, and it was like it was just really well done. And so, ordering the food with like a pour over, and then I'd bring friends there, and I'd be like, hey, get a pour over.
Gotta get the pour over.
Gotta get a pour over, like try it out. And not realizing like the process of making it, or what a pain it is to like average people in the coffee field. You know what I mean? I'd come up and like, can I get another pour over? And the person's like, it's kind of like press lips. And I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah. And I would buy coffee from there. And then I remember I took it home one day, and, as a teenager at the time, like I took it home one day. I was like, oh, like it's still beans. Like this isn't like brewable. Like how do I,
what do I do?
Yeah. And so I was like, and so I put it in like a Ziploc bag, and I just started like kind of smashing it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I did that before.
Yeah. So did that, and I was like, okay, now how am I going to brew it? I'm like, these are so many. I didn't plan for any of this, and I was like, all right, I'll heat up a pot of water and just kind of work it a little bit. So, yeah, so I did that, and I was like, and I think just because you make something, there's that aspect to it, and I was like, yeah, this is
good. I'm a pro.
Yeah. So,
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so that pulled me in, and I was like, okay,
kind of like a French press, but not
right. Cowboy coffee.
Yeah,
a little bit of grounds in there.
Yeah,
I like my coffee with some grit to it.
Yeah,
it's like the Bosnian coffee. You get it, and it's just like thick oil.
Yeah,
like it's almost like motor oil at the bottom of it.
Yeah,
it's so strong.
Yeah.
I'm a big French. We use a French press at our house, and that's you get to the bottom.
There's still
nice
the thick.
Yeah,
I'm
good stuff.
I'm a French press guy.
Yeah, I like the French press.
Yeah, wish I would have known about it at the
time. Yeah, you learned. Now you know what a French press.
Right.
Now you probably know every way there is to brew coffee. So
yeah, so huge learning
Yeah.
To answer your question, like a
Right.
huge amount of learning since then. But yeah, I mean, I was vaguely into it and, it got me involved.
Now, do you guys have your own coffee beans, or do you guys? Where do you source your beans from, or are you guys a wholesaler of your beans? What do you guys do there?
Yeah. So originally when we started, we roasted on a much smaller scale roaster. So mainly we were just supplying our shop at the time.
Now, what is a roast like? What is the roasting process like?
Yeah.
Like when you say you're roasting the coffee, obviously, it says it on pretty much any bag of coffee you buy. It says roasted or whatever. Like, what is that process like?
Okay. So here we go.
Yeah, let's just get into it. The nitty gritty.
Yeah. So coffee is originally a cherry and it's grown on a tree. And the bean is actually the seed of the cherry that we're roasting. So when it arrives, it has a certain moisture content to it that's still within the bean. And it's green and it's super hard. Like if you were to run it through your grinder, it would mess up your grinder. And all we're doing when we roast it is we're just taking it through like that Maillard reaction. We're caramelizing it. So just like how you would like cook anything like a steak, that's how I would compare it at the beginning. That's a super like simple way of explaining it, but it's just like taking a raw steak to, done to some level of doneness.
Like, is it like you putting it in an oven basically?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to roast. Some people started out like roasting on a cast iron, which I don't recommend, but it's a way to take coffee from, start to finish. We started out on air roaster, a fluid bed roaster. And so what that looks like is it's a large popcorn machine essentially. So the beans are floating in the air and you control the temperature, so the wattage going in as well as the air, how much airflow you want. So how much lift you want away from the burner. And that kind of allows you to control how much heat is going to be hitting the beans. So that's how we started. What you see around most specialty shops or most established shops is a drum roaster where it's this large stainless steel drum that rotates and it has flame burners underneath. And it's heating up this floating bean bed that's churning on the inside. So you can also control the airflow on those. So not only are you able to kind of heat through convection, but you're also heating it through just contact on the drum itself. And then the deeper dive of that is, where are you sourcing the beans from? What's the processing of the beans look like? All that is going to impact how you choose to roast it. But those are kind of the implements you would use for roasting the coffee. Okay. Yeah. So, we can touch on like a deeper dive later on, unless you want to hear it now. But yeah, it's when you like select a coffee, whenever I'm trying to source a coffee, I'm looking for a couple different things. I'm looking for like where the elevation is, because that's going to dictate the complexity of the coffee. So, since it's a crop, it possesses, same thing happens with corn, by the way, but the elevation it's grown at, if it's grown at a higher elevation, it's going to struggle for oxygen. And so it's going to produce more, it's going to struggle to survive. It's going to produce more aminos. It's going to create more complexity within the cherry. So lower elevation coffees usually aren't as complex, but the higher elevation, there's a sweet spot for it. But the higher elevation, you're usually going to get a more complex bean from the beginning. And then roasting, it's up to the roaster to decide.
Do we want a complex bean?
Usually you do in specialty coffee. And that's kind of how like specialty coffee grades, the grading or the value of it is how much complexity it has. That just gives you more control as a roaster. And, where the coffee industry has kind of gone today, people are looking for something that's a little different. And that varies based on your clientele, who you're roasting for. There's waves to the coffee industry, and like wave one was mainly like Folgers and, those types of things where it's like, it's Maxwell House. Yeah. And it's like grown at low elevation, then it's roasted super dark. And part of the thing with roasting is it's like using a steak as an example. If you take it well done in butterfly, it's kind of lost same thing when you cook like anything to that level. You lose whatever it originally was. It's the same thing with coffee. So if you have a low elevation coffee, you can get by with roasting it really dark like that, like Folgers, Maxwell House. But if you have something that's had more effort put in to make sure it survives and grows and has more complexity, it would just kind of it wouldn't make a lot of sense to roast it to that level, especially if you're paying a higher price to bring that coffee in. So, that's where it varies based on who the roaster is and what your customer base wants.
Now, do you only offer one type, or do you have different type, like per complexity? Like, I'm sure it's probably more cost efficient for you to get the lower elevation that you can just churn real quick because it's, it's not as expensive for your everyday just black coffee. But if you want somebody that wants like a specialty one, are you guys doing more? That's where the more complex comes in.
So all of our coffee is specialty grade.
Okay.
Yeah. So every coffee we bring in has that specialty rating to it. And my goal is and I've I'll tell you a story about this in a minute, but starting out, I was super into trying to find these really crazy experimental coffees, and I was looking for the next like kind of flavor bomb.
Yeah.
And I remember I served this super fruity Ethiopian coffee. It was an anaerobic natural was the process, and this has kind of grown over the past few years. But basically, they take the cherries and they put them in these drum barrels, and they submerge them in a pool of water, and they'll leave them for, let's say, 7 days after they pump it with CO2. And so they anaerobically ferment, kind of like how wine, does. And then they'll bring it out and they'll let it sit, and the flesh of the cherry comes off. And so usually you get like a fruitier, more winey acidity type of, bean from it. And so I had gotten that in a couple bags of that, and I'd roasted it, and I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. And I had, everybody at the shop try it, and they're like, oh yeah, like that's like you're getting like strawberries and blueberries, and it's like super
Really?
juicy. Yeah. And it was like, this is it, and I had served, we had two brewers at the time. And so on one side we kept this one, the fruity Ethiopian. On another one, it was just like a Colombian that was a little more average. And this older woman had come in, and they'd given her the, Ethiopian and stuff. And then it was like a few minutes later, I didn't know about this, but a few minutes later she comes up and she's like, I think my coffee went sour, or I think my coffee's gone bad, and I was like, what? She's like, yeah, it's like really like sour and stuff. Like, I think the coffee went bad. And then it clicked with me. I was like, oh, like she's got the Ethiopian, And I was like, and so I was like, oh, I guess I do got to take into account where people are coming from, and like if this is something that majority of the people are going to like, and it, it's you got to meet people where they're at with coffee, and it's such a subjective, experience for everybody too. Or
you could have 10 different people try that same coffee, and 5 of them love it and 5 of them hate it,
right,
or whatever it is. But yeah, it's hard to please everybody.
Yeah. And context is everything too. It's like if like I were to serve that, to someone and not give them any context on it, then they're just kind of getting hit with a lot of flavors they're not expecting from a coffee. And, it kind of ruins their expectations. And coming from that alone, it's not going to create a good experience for them most likely. So, usually whenever I give someone that coffee and I kind of tell them, hey, like, this is what's,
This is a little different.
Yeah, it's different. This is why it's different. You can expect to taste, this, but there's no like right or wrong answer to what you're tasting. It's what you taste, and usually when people have that context going into it, then they can really appreciate it. So that's kind of where our branding and where our focus has shifted, like from when we started to where we are now, is just trying to make specialty coffee more digestible for people. And when I think about my experience starting out in coffee, or like just trying coffee as a customer, I remember being very like intimidated by the process, because like you've got this menu of like drinks I have nothing,
can barely pronounce.
I can barely pronounce, and I'm like, and I just kind of want a regular coffee a lot of times.
I don't know what a cortado is.
Yeah, right. And and then it's like, depending on where you're at, the experience, like someone maybe, you're kind of dealing with like a barista who's maybe like, just kind of dead staring at you, and you're like, yeah, I'll get this, and then you get it and you're like, oh, this is okay. This isn't what I wanted, but I don't know what I'm getting.
Well, yeah. And I never want to be like that super extra dude, like that, or that like it has like a bunch of different things. I just like want to say like, give me an Americano, like, or whatever it is. Like, I just want to look at the menu and say, like, yeah, give me that one.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of people. They don't want to.
I'm gonna say, give me a black coffee.
Go to now, if you go to Starbucks with my wife, it's a whole thing. She's got to look up the recipe or how to order it from this guy that she follows on Instagram, the macro barista. I don't know if you've heard of him, but yeah, she always is pulling up some sort of recipe that this guy concocted.
Yeah, it's this whole list of like,
dude, it's like I gotta say like 8 things to this poor person through the drive-through, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, my wife's a little bit of a pain in the ass. She wants a this, and with two stevia packets, and it's
yeah.
like, fuck.
And did you catch that this needs to be shaken and skinny?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please read that back to me. If I get it wrong, I'm coming back.
No, 100%. So, just that's our goal. Improving on is just like, especially like where we're at, like demographically, trying to get people to understand specialty coffee a little bit better, but not being super pressing about it. And, trying to meet people on an experience where it's like, they can be like, oh, this place has good coffee. And then if they want to like inquire further, we have the knowledge to kind of guide them along, or give them some more info on, coffee in general, or if they want to try something else, we can recommend them a bag we have, So, yeah, that's how it's shifted over time. Yeah.
Really cool.
Well, you mentioned the barista that's just sitting there staring at you, and it makes you a little uncomfortable. Do you have the people that are working for you and your baristas like, oh, hey, we're going to be friendly. We're going to walk people through this and kind of explain what each and everything is, kind of give them that like a little extra experience to the coffee buying process?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like coming from like a background working in restaurants and then, throughout like my teenage years, mainly waiting tables and everything. The whole thing revolves around hospitality,
100%.
and you want people to have a good experience. And especially like in coffee or like, being in like a more breakfast centric type of thing, like the way you interact with someone, you're kind of dictating how their day is starting, a lot of times. And especially like in an environment already where it's like, I think especially for guys going into it, it's kind of like a weird environment, like a weird, like there's a stigma of like, oh, ordering something. And then there's also like kind of the confusion of the process, of like, I don't, like we just talked about,
Yeah,
like, I have
you
no
don't
clue
wanna-
what I'm getting.
Yeah,
you
you
know?
want to be confident when you walk up and say this.
Yeah.
So I just say the simplest thing because I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Right. And then it's like, if you're older, it's like, oh, this stuff is new, and
Yeah.
you just want a regular coffee. So it's about like meeting people where they're at, making people feel welcome when they come in, acknowledging them, and then trying to provide the like good, friendly service. And it's like, I think also like if you have staff and you kind of walk them through like what hospitality should look like, and you try to maintain like those parameters of hospitality, I think it makes, as an employee, like the experience a lot more fulfilling as well, when you realize like, oh, you are impacting someone's day, and especially like when you see like someone you may have dealt with, when on their first experience coming in, and you see them come in like a few days later and after that, and you realize like, oh, like you were part of the reason why they feel comfortable coming here and why they become a regular. I think it creates more value for yourself, and you're like, well, what I'm doing does matter, and it's like, and people are bringing friends in and, recommending it and stuff. It's like, yeah, like how you interact with people, you're creating good experiences. There's people like, it's been really cool for me just over these past 5 years, like seeing like families start, people getting engaged, and consistently like coming in, over time. And it's just like, it's cool to be part of that little experience, and some people, it's like you see more than some of their family does, who are regulars, and they come in, and, it's cool being part of that, knowing that people feel comfortable coming to your place consistently, and I know the staff feels the same way. So,
Totally,
yeah.
man. I worked in the restaurant industry for about 10 years, and I mean, 9 of those years was on and off at a breakfast place.
Mm.
So I'm very, very, everything you're saying, I couldn't agree more with, just because the regulars, man, they're so important. Like, I feel like they're like a walking billboard for your business. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the people that love you, they sing your praises,
Mhm.
and it's so important. And you look so forward to seeing the regulars. Like there's several regulars that you'd have, and they'd always want to sit in my section, or the people that, they have their one server that they want, and they always sit in Chris's section. So, but everybody goes over and says hi to them, and, they're in here almost every day. And it's just that the regulars are so important in the restaurant industry. It's, and they're the biggest advocates for your business too.
100%.
Yeah. I do miss, I miss pieces I miss parts of being in the restaurant for sure.
Yeah.
There's definitely like, cause like there's that like craziness of like when you get really busy, that it just like feels like chaos, but it's like controlled chaos.
It's like a flow state kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, especially like I felt like that the most, like when I was working in the kitchen, and, like we'd busy on a Saturday or Sunday, and I'd be like working the egg station, and just like you're in this like flow of like flipping eggs, turning omelets, and like it just, it's fun.
Yeah.
I miss it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, and like everybody talks, like there's so many like enjoyable aspects of working in the restaurant field. And then, there's obviously like drawbacks to it, but you encounter that in every field, and it can be hard just working in like a customer service, field in general.
Yeah. Cause and the thing about restaurants is, I mean, there's very few, days off a lot of times. Well, a lot of restaurants do like the closed Mondays thing, but I would imagine as a breakfast place, you guys probably don't do that.
Correct.
Because it's like that. That's like I would imagine Monday mornings might be one of the busiest times. I don't know. I don't know for for your business in particular, but I just everybody comes in and gets coffee on their way to work and stuff like that. So I would imagine Monday mornings are I'm sure there's a little bit of a rush or
Right.
whatever, and like that's you can't turn that stuff down when you're in the industry. Yeah, it's awesome. I love restaurants.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, now, what are you guys' hours?
So we're 7 to 2 throughout the week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then 8 to 2 on weekends. So
Okay.
nothing, it's not these crazy long hours. And I remember initially when starting, I'd considered kind of staying open a little bit later, and there was a lot of people kind of asking about it. But then it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, especially coming like still being in COVID with it a little bit, I'm like, staff is already an issue, as far as like, who am I going to get to work this? What would the shifts look like? And then it's like, I know there's kind of this,
Because there's that dead zone between like 2 and
right.
4:30, 5 o'clock, because then you got, if you got, a staff there, you're paying labor, but you don't have money coming in the door.
Mhm.
And, we'd always try to keep our labor at a certain percentage and it's hard to do when you have that time in between lunch and dinner where you're kind of prepping stuff for dinner, but you don't have any money coming in the door,
Yeah.
especially if you're like front of house and you're just kind of sitting around rolling silverware. But if you're in the back, you're prepping for dinner and it's like, yeah, there's no money coming in. It's only money coming out.
Right. Yeah.
But the hours of a breakfast place, that was always what was super appealing. So it was like I could always have my nights off. I could always, I was in high school and college. I could always go out with my friends. It's just like I got to be there at 7 a.m. So
Yeah.
it's some late nights with not a lot of sleep. But it's in my opinion, that if you're gonna work in the restaurant industry and you want to have a more of a life, I think that those hours you were working, that's the best.
Yeah, I mean, especially like for me coming from where it's like, working like 10 to 10 kind of, things in other places. It's like that's a lot more enjoyable for me working these morning hours. And it feels like I have two, especially when I started, it felt like I had like 2 days kind of, in one day
Yeah,
sort of thing where it's like, oh, like, okay, we're officially closed. So I can still do stuff here if I need to do stuff and I don't have to worry about, people coming in or having to try to balance actually working, with like customers and guests. And then it's like if I'm not doing anything, for the cafe, then it's like I can go, go to the gym or, it's still early enough in the day to have a life.
Well, yeah, it's early enough. You could still, go to somewhere, whatever business it is. A lot of places close, at 5 or something. But like if you're off at 2, businesses close at 2. You could, and go to a doctor's appointment or this or whatever it is. Because that's the hard part with the restaurant industry. A lot of, like you said, working 10 to 10, like when are you going to go get anything done? Like,
I'm thinking about our hours. I'm like, fuck, I would love to have an 8 to 2 job.
Yeah.
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 Get
for
down
sure.
and have time to go get my kids and hang out with them and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. You can pick them up from school. Like it was, the hours of the breakfast and brunch place that's the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, with you taking this over, how did it go? Taking this over as an established business and then recreating a new culture, a new brand, new community within that thing. How long did that take you to get to that point?
Yeah. So, having no background in like branding or marketing or like, any like experience outside of, because no prior work experience besides just being in restaurants, really. So I was like, ooh, I was like, how do I brand? Because we're called Proving Ground.
Yeah. It's a great name.
Yeah. But I was also like,
Was it always that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, what does, Proving Ground mean? It's like, how do I brand that? How do I turn that into something that would be okay on a t-shirt or on like, what's like the logo? What's the thing? And talking to the previous owner, he's like, oh, it's like a testing ground, type of thing. And I was like, okay, like, what do I do with that? So it took me, it like maybe 2 years really of like still kind of being like, rocking with the old logo. What do I do with it? And, people would ask me, oh, it's like a testing ground, and then kind of give them the spiel. And, but even then I'm like, man, like, should I have changed the name to something that would like click with? And I'm sure I had like some really stupid names that I thought of at the time, you know what I mean? But I'm like, should I have changed the name? But I remember when I was taking it over and it was like during COVID and stuff, I was like, nervous to do that and kind of risk like starting fresh without like any established clientele, coming into it. And so I left it. And so it took me a while to figure it out. And I, I'll use this real quick as an example here, but I brought some coffee in.
Nice.
Yeah. But this is our logo up on the front here now. And we have gone through a couple different like
Is that the logo you
I
made?
like that with the coffee
cup?
mug.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah,
like you're pouring it in there. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So
like
it took a while and we went through a couple different iterations of bags that I just kind of designed online, and I was like, okay, this looks a little better. This looks a little better. but it wasn't really completing my vision for things, and I was still kind of stuck on like, what do I turn this name into? Like, how do because it never fully felt complete to me. And so then I went and reached out to a branding agency and started working with them, and I sent them a post-it note that I drew, and it was a line, kind of like this wavy looking line on it, and I was like, oh, like art and science of coffee. That's kind of where I wanted to go with things, and I was like. And they're like, okay, what's the line mean? And we sat through and talked. And I was like, well, when we're roasting coffee, we have software hooked up to it. And what that does is it's tracking the thermal probes we have in the roaster. And so what I'm basically able to do is examine and track a couple different temperature points throughout the roast process. That way I have some data if I want to recreate the roast later on. So, a lot of the time roasting is spent looking at these graphs over and over. And so I was like, well, I think that'd be kind of like a cool way to pull people in, open up the discussion. And I was telling the person I was working with, like these goals, like, kind of give people like, where they look at it and they're like, what does that mean? And open up a discussion about coffee, hopefully. Looking back on it, I'm glad that whatever they presented to me didn't have that at all, because what they gave me ended up being so much better, so like when we have our bags now, the logo can be interpreted as a couple different things. It's like a mug, or is it a pour over vessel? Is the steam coming off?
Yeah.
So it all kind of revolves around coffee. And on the bag itself, we have kind of the journey and process
yeah,
of
I see
coffee.
that.
Yeah. So, that it kind of accomplished what I had set out to do, and
That's
I think
cool.
it did
So,
it
like,
better.
yeah, you got the plant, and the guys pick the plant, and they dry out the beans.
Yeah. Different processes that go
Yeah.
through. And then we have the roaster at the bottom with like
Yeah.
espresso machine, so someone picks it up and they're like, oh, just kind of want to ask what this is. It's like, oh yeah, it's this part of the process, so it, it ended up being way better, and pulling it in. And when I talked with her about it, I had to come up with like a mission statement at the time, to present it. And that's something I kind of looked around, because it's like, well, we didn't have much to go off of as a brand. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to start like typing up some drafts of what I think, I want this to be, or what, my goals are here. And I think that was one of the best decisions I've made while doing, this, because what it did was it set like some parameters, and it gave me a better vision on what, I need to be doing, or what proving ground is, or how do I explain it to people, or how, this is what the package looks like. And so like when I talk with people and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I think a mission statement is one of the better things you can do for your business, even if you don't think it's needed. Like for some reason, people have this idea that like a mission statement is needed for like a bigger corporation or company. But what I think it does is it helps give you guidelines on what to do and what not to do, because sometimes people try to do things that don't necessarily align with what their business is. And, I think it creates confusion for like customers when they come in. It's like if you went to like a smoothie place and for some reason they just started doing pizza, you're like, well, this doesn't make sense, and then it's like, oh, well, the pizza doesn't work. So now we're, getting rid of smoothies and pizza, and we're going to do this, and it's like, oh, I don't really know what this place is anymore,
Right. Yeah.
So I think kind of having like guidelines, and whether it's through like a mission statement or just kind of completing like a vision or like a mood board or something for what you're seeking out to do, I think it helps a lot as far as like planning where you want to go.
Yeah, no, 100%. Then you have something to kind of go back on and be like, hey, this is where we were. How did we get here? This is what we want. You can always go back to it, kind of see.
Right.
Wow. Well, one other thing, something we have in common. You trained jujitsu at Revive.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
I was gonna say, does Junior supply your beans to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got hooked up at Revive. Yeah. So, in high school, I wrestled, and, I had tried out jujitsu, throughout the years in between like wrestling. And then, when I was 12, I tried it out a bit, and it was, new, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I never really kind of stuck with it. And then right after high school, tried again, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's cool. I'll get into it at some point, but it never like fully pulled me in. And then I was doing like kickboxing and no-gi jiu-jitsu, and I was mainly focused on like the kickboxing at the time, and I was really enjoying it. And I had a friend, Max Choriev, who reached out to me. He's like, hey, I have a buddy of mine who's, starting a coffee business. He's going to be importing coffee. I'm going to give him your number. And I was like, okay, sure. Not really expecting too much, because you get a lot of emails from people, and a lot of times it's like smaller scale importers, and it's like, I don't have much, to offer you as far as like the volume isn't what I need. And he reached out and it ended up being like on this, what I was looking for. He was bringing in enough volume to where I was like, oh yeah, like this could work for our shop. And so I met, up with Junior, and he was dropped off some samples, and talking with him, like he's just a great,
Such a good
yeah, great dude, super easygoing. And, of course he's like, hey, like come train,
come train. Come train.
yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come train. He's like, yeah, I was like in St. Charles, I was like, okay, it's a little far, but I'll get out there. Like, I'll make it happen. And, then he dropped off some more coffee. He's like, oh, are you going to come train? I was like, yeah, I'll come train. So I set it on my schedule. I was like, oh, I'll get out there. And so started training up there. And, right away I was like, man, this is a great gym.
It's a great gym.
It's a great gym. And, it was like my first time really doing gi stuff. Like I'd lightly done it before, and I was like, this is, it's cool. It's the kind of where it started. I get it, but I didn't really see like too much value in it. And then it was just kind of like getting stuck in positions where people had me by the gi and they were doing, different things and
choking with you.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, like this is a whole different,
a whole new world.
Yeah. And so then kind of troubleshooting that and figuring out, how do I get out of this? Or what was I getting choked with? Well, okay, well, what's the defense for that? Or what's the counter for that? And then it was like kind of a rabbit hole thing that pulled me in where I'm like, okay, I like how lucrative this is. It's a super awesome learning process of figuring things out.
Yeah, dude, the gi is, I hated it when I first started. I was like, oh, I only want to do no gi. And then, I don't know. And then just with the availability of classes, I was like, because the gym I started at it, I wasn't always at Watson's. I was at a different. They would do like, I think it was like Mondays and Wednesdays were gi classes, and Tuesday Thursdays were no gi classes. And so I was like, well, I want to train more than 2 days a week. So I just started showing up to the gi classes too, and then eventually just kind of really fell in love with the gi. Like I love it now. I mean, I train probably, I would say like 2/3 of the time gi, and then 1/3 of the time no gi. But yeah, I mean, I just hated getting choked with my own clothes. That was it was pretty eye opening. But yeah, it's awesome. Have you done any competing?
Yeah, so I competed like a month after starting, and
cool.
yeah, and it was cool. It was such a good.
Well, you come in with a high school wrestling background, you got a big advantage over over people for sure. Like I did something similar. I think I was like 2 or 3 months in, and I remember my first match, I just like double legged the dude and held him inside control and won the match. I was like, huh, all right.
right. Yeah. And from a wrestling standpoint, like all of it translated extremely well. What didn't translate extremely well was just getting held by gi grips, the whole time. And the first time I was just kind of in between on weight classes, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to compete at ultra heavy, and stuff. And that's whatever. And I remember I just weighed in, like I was holding my bag and I had my pockets full and everything. And I was like, 230 on the scale. I was like, oh, okay, and so I stepped in, and things were going well. But when I started, I was just too eager to get the submission, and I should have slowed things down, kind of climbed more, but I was just like, as soon as the submission opened up, without having like fundamentals fully locked in on like transitioning to like, for example, like a head and arm choke, and just kind of getting flipped over like through the process. And then, you have someone who's like 270, 280, like on you. It's like, man, I can bridge and I can shoot, but I'm just going to get held. And so that's what happened is I just got held there. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you're not getting pinned. So
yeah.
That's good.
right. I'm like, well, I'm in a decent position wrestling wise, but I just lost the match.
Right.
So it's like, that was a big thing for me. And, talking with like the coaches afterwards and stuff, and just kind of going over all the details, and, having like it's hard to watch the video right away. You're like, I don't want to see that. Like,
I know it's horrible. I hate, well, sometimes I like watching myself, but a lot of times, most of the time I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I love competing, thankfully, just because of like the background in wrestling and, rugby and stuff. Like it mentally doesn't feel like that taxing to compete. I don't have too many nerves going into it. I think if you're starting jujitsu, it's sometimes harder to compete. You have those nerves.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't done one-on-one sports like that.
Yeah,
it's different when it's just you out there. You got no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah, and you just create like a huge mental battle. And like I remember the first year of wrestling, and I would try to, like kind of hype myself up a little bit, and I'd listen to like some heavier music, and just be like, okay, like I'm really gonna go in there. I'm just gonna dog on this guy, and but really, I would just psych myself up like so much, and just for like kind of adrenaline dump a little bit. And it's like I would do fine in my matches, but just creating so much mental like fatigue for no reason, and so it just took doing it more, more reps in and stuff to get comfortable in that environment. So thankfully that I'm glad I did that in the past because I have like the foundations, and some fundamentals, but just like the mental aspect of it is just way less draining, than I remember. Than I remember it being like my first season because I was like, man, is this sport for me? Because like I can't believe I'm getting so worked up over just having to go out here and wrestle. And I think it was like John Danaher or something who explained like competing is no different, than you training in class. It's just kind of there's this illusion of and spectacle of like, okay, well here's a ref now, and
You got your friends over there, everybody watching you, and there's a scoreboard, and there's yeah, it's just stakes are a little higher, but you just got to kind of block that stuff out. I mean, I still get nervous sometimes before matches and stuff, but
yeah,
like this coming weekend or 10 days from now, I'm competing, and I haven't competed since that October last year, so it's been like almost a year since I've competed, so I'm a
Yeah.
little rusty,
Right.
but I'm looking forward to get back in there. I've been
Are you
training real
doing
hard.
the?
I was planning on it. I've got some people taking off and another employee having a wedding. And so I'm like, I'm kind of trying to wait until the deadline to see if I can make it happen or not. But originally I had planned on it. So I would like to,
Yeah.
but it's the 16th today. So I've got 3 days until registration closes, I think. So I'm kind of riding it out.
Yeah, you gotta make a decision here soon.
You got more guys in your group?
Yeah, last I looked, I got 2 guys in my bracket, so I think. And then I think no-gi, I've only got 1 guy. So at least I've got
Somebody.
Yeah.
3 matches, hopefully, and then, if I do well, I guess the open. But yeah, so I'm excited. We've won last 3 years. I think we've won, or no, last 2 years we've won the team trophy. So
Nice.
and I haven't been able to compete the last 2. It just so happened like every weekend that it's been on, I've had something. So glad to be doing it this year. But yeah, I'm pumped.
I'm excited to go.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an all day ordeal though. That's kind of the worst part about it.
Yeah.
Especially when you do both divisions like gi and no gi, because it's like
A whole weekend.
yeah, your whole day is because they're doing it all in one day.
Are
So,
they?
yeah, so gi and no gi are both on Saturday, so
Nice.
it's gonna be Saturday is just gonna be a long day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I'll probably compete gi in the morning and then probably not do no gi until the afternoon. So a lot of waiting around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up for the early part. I got a wedding that night that I got to go to, but
Yeah, I'm pumped. Man. It'll be good. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you got into it. So how long have you been training now?
Let's see. I guess this month is officially a year of training at Revive.
Hell yeah. Dude.
Yeah.
That's
So, like I said, like inconsistent times throughout the years of like hopping into it, but this past year,
stuck with it.
yeah, I mean, every week, like usually just 3 days a week, and it's been super consistent, and it's, I don't know, it hooked me. you know?
Yeah, dude.
So,
The consistency piece, that's what I always tell people when they're getting started. Like, you gotta show up regularly, because especially like, if like at least how we do it at Watson's, like we'll be, if you come for a week and then you don't show up for another 3 weeks, like you're gonna come back and like you're kind of behind as far as like, yes, we're not working on the same thing anymore.
mhm.
We went from there to here, and now we're working on something that, the next step after maybe we were working on a guard pass when you came 3 weeks ago, and now we're, working on attacks from side control or attacks from mount. Like, so it's like, okay, we use that guard pass to get to side controller mount, and then, now we're working on this stuff. So it, the consistency piece is the biggest thing.
Yeah. And on that, I think like there's this like term I use with a friend of mine, but it's like, if you just reshoot on something, like people, like especially if like working out or, even jujitsu, I think a lot of times if like, let's say you plan like, oh, I'm going to go gym 3 days this week, or I'm going to train jujitsu 3 days this week, but you miss like that first day of what you had planned, then there's a lot of people who are like, okay, well, there kind of goes this whole week of like,
Yeah.
training, like my plan is messed up, and I'll just start the next week, and then something, and just kind of keeps, like you keep delaying it.
Yeah.
And I think, and when that happens in jujitsu, people just kind of like phase out,
Yes.
and quit. And it's like, it's never like, there's no like perfect time to just like hop back in, it's just like you're delaying, when you could start. So it's like, if you, just cause you missed this time or you had to take this time off, like just hop back in,
Yeah.
cause there's no like parameter or timeline, it's all individual. So it's like, if you're interested in doing it, I understand like trying it and it not being for you, that's completely valid. But if it's like a mental thing of like, oh, well, I already missed this much time off and stuff, it's like, it's never too late to just hop back in. you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, I feel like I get people that'll tell me like, oh, I want to get in shape first. Like, and that's the one thing I always kind of roll my eyes at, because I'm like, man,
they're never in shape.
like nothing's gonna get you in shape like
No.
jujitsu shape. Like you can be a marathon runner. I don't care. Like you're gonna still go in there and you do a 5 minute round. You're gonna be gassed. I
Yeah.
guarantee it. Like I don't care how good you are cardiovascularly. Like this is a different thing that you're not used to, and you're not efficient in the movement. So until you're efficient in the movements, then and you're not used to having someone on top of you, like and you're hyperventilating.
Right.
Like, you know, it's because that's how you can always tell someone's brand new. Like, obviously, if you're not looking at their belt, but like just like their demeanor
Mhm.
and like their breath rate or the respiratory rate, I guess you'd say, like when they're training, like if they're like hyperventilating and breathing super hard and fast and like they're not actually doing anything. You
Yeah,
know? They're
yeah.
just grabbing
Just
and
tight.
you know, and they're just death gripping the gi or something. And it's like, you know, like just breathe, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you get
That's me
efficient.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get it, man.
Well,
Takes time.
I'm gonna until like I go on Thursday to get the knee looked at and then possibly MRI. But I think I'm gonna come after my closing tomorrow just to be there and watch because I think even still just
Yeah, get going
just
there.
coming in and watching is
Mental reps, man.
Yeah.
That's what I did when
Mhm.
I had my knee surgery. I used to just come in and just sit on the edge of the mat and just watch. You know, watch. It's just being around it. You're getting something. Yeah, you're
Right.
not in there training, but like you're getting kind of the mental reps. You're like you're
Still
part of it.
seeing it,
You're
you're
on the
still-
mat. You're with everybody. You can like see what we're working on, which is it's important.
I've been doing it long enough to know how my body moves to like, okay, this is how that works. Because there's some times where we're in there working on stuff and I'm like, my size, like, I don't know if that move's ever really going to work for me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the thing is there's plenty of things that like we'll teach and I like or we'll be working on. I'm like I don't know if this will be for me, but I'll drill it, know. But like it's not really gonna work with my body type or whatever it is because like every body type I think has like their own pros and cons. You know, like if you're a long lanky guy, like you probably are good at darces and anaconda chokes and triangles and stuff like that. But then like shorter, stockier guys like myself, like favor like Kimuras and guillotines and like these like
Things that are
where-
in tight.
Yeah, things where
Yeah.
you're getting like really like you can really cinch something up real quick. It's just like I feel like everything has their pros and their cons. So it's just you got to figure out what works for you and and kind of capitalize on that.
Just smosh.
Yeah, just
Smash. Shmeesh.
Yeah, man. Well, I love it. But yeah, back to the coffee stuff. Have you ever had any like crazy requests at the cafe?
None that are coming to my head really. Like it's people I mean, we've had people ask for like, oh, do you guys sell that Nepalese cat coffee, the Kapi Luwak
The
stuff,
poop- the poop stuff?
Yeah, like
Oh,
do you
man.
ever get any of that? And that just kind of shows where people's like opinions or like beliefs are of like what is like
What is
specialty coffee. So there's like a
It's cat poop.
yeah.
Cat poop? Really? People
Yeah, they feed I don't even know what type of cats they are, if they're like ocelots or what, but they're fed coffee, cherries, and then they digest it, and then the seeds are what's left in their
Their poop?
yeah, and so they I think it was the movie like Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson that kind of like kicked off people's awareness of this existing.
Okay.
Because like one of the characters in there tries it and he's like, oh, it's Kapi Luwak or whatever. It's like $100, a cup or something like that. And so I guess that helped shape people's perception of like, oh yeah, that's like
That's
the
the
extreme,
fanciest,
the fanciest coffee. I haven't
Pappy
tried it.
Van Winkle of coffee.
I haven't tried it, but I've heard it's nothing exceptional.
You're drinking poop
Yeah, I
water.
was gonna say, you're drinking something that came out of a cat's ass.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
thanks.
Not my, not for me. I don't think.
Well, what have you seen in the shift? I mean, I feel like coffee shops have been popping up left and right, and there's just been this big insurgence of coffee, and the popularity of coffee.
Mhm.
What have you seen in the time frame that you've owned your coffee shop?
Yeah, it's been interesting because, like you said, like there are more shops popping up, and it seems like coffee's changed so much, like just over like the past 20 years. It's like Starbucks originally started out as a specialty coffee shop, and then it branched out, and franchised and became what it is today. And there's not like I said, coffee's subjective, so it's like if that's what you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. But it was like maybe like in the mid 2010s, I guess, there was this huge like second wave, third wave push of coffee where it's like these super specialty shops that, really are like precise and focus in on things. And I think sometimes with places like that, it kind of carries like this pretentious like vibe with it, and it kind of, people can seek that super uh, specialty coffee experience, but it also turns a lot of people away because it's just too much, so what I've noticed, in the 2020s and what I've seen a lot of shops doing is it's a lot more like vibe focused, a lot more like community centric. It's turning back kind of into like a meeting ground of places, and there is a focus on, local roasting, and you know everywhere seems to have pretty good coffee, I'd say. Like, if you're like, there are some shops where it's like, it may not be your thing, but it seems like a lot of places do put in like the investment when it comes to like equipment, and to at least make sure that they have the capability to serve good coffee. And that translate, it's like, you need to have like the training and the knowledge of like, okay, here's how you calibrate things for it to actually taste well. It's one thing to like buy the stuff, or like, there's certain people who think it's like, oh, it's a good investment opportunity to like start a place. And I've had so many people like reach out to me just over the years where it's like, oh, I'm going to open this, and then I'm going to work there for 6 months, and then I'll hire a manager, and then they'll kind of run things. And I'm like, let me know what the secret is,
You figure that out.
Good luck.
6 months in. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, because I mean, if you look just on this side of the river, I mean, within the last handful of years, you've got Omen, you've got the 23 West, you got Telva, you've got Toleo, you got Rosemary. There's another one in Baldwin. But yeah, I mean,
There's one in South County.
Florida Lee.
Florida Lee.
There's another one over there, where like the
Coffee culture.
yeah, coffee culture.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, you talk about it, is each one of those have kind of a different, unique vibe.
I feel like they all have different vibes.
Yeah.
For sure. When you say, kind of all about the vibe, because I think about the coffee shops that I like, I feel like that's the biggest draw that's going to make me go to them, is like, all right, do I like hanging out in the spot? Because it's like, if I'm going to a coffee shop, I'm rarely like grabbing a coffee to go. Like, I'm grabbing a coffee and I'm sitting down and opening up my laptop. I'm going to kill an hour, two. And, I want it to be a place that I enjoy hanging out at.
Yeah.
Like, I want to feel comfortable there. I want to like the vibe. Like you said, I think that's just a huge piece of it.
Yeah. And that seems to be like what I'm noticing with these shops that are popping up. Like, there is a bigger focus on that, and obviously there's like like you asked, what is some of the biggest changes I've noticed? There's drive-through places popping up and
like
stuff.
Scooters and Seven Brew.
Seven Brew. Man, those are popping up
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah. That's down in Florida, my parents. And there was, I think there was more Seven Brew and Scooters down there than there were Starbucks.
Yeah.
It was almost like, because the way theirs is set up, like where they're at along the Panhandle, it's like it goes Destin, Fort Walton, then where they're at Navarre, then you've got Gulf Breeze, then Pensacola. And all these places are like 10 minutes apart, and each one had a scooter or Seven Brew. So there's just like along this probably 60-mile stretch, there's 6 scooters and 6 Seven Brews, and then there's like 3 Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's just incredible. My dad's like, I just don't get it. How do people drink so much coffee? I'm like, I'd rather just brew it at home anyway. I'm like, okay, Dad, that's fine. You're also 75 years old. So
yeah. And it would be interesting too, to see kind of what the sales look like, as far as like, what is their main seller? Like, is it just regular coffee? Is it like their refreshers? It's like, that's where it's like, when coffee is such a wide term for so many different, preferences. And it's like I said, completely subjective, because it's like, there can be a shop where it's like, I think they have great coffee, and, I think I have good coffee. But, someone could be like, oh, I don't like their coffee, I like your coffee. Or I don't like your coffee, but I like their coffee. And it's like, and we could even have the same roaster and kind of do the same stuff, but it's just like, they do it slightly different, we do it slightly different. And, someone prefers that, or even just how we go about like brewing our coffee. Like, a lot of places use double shots for things. And when you get to like places like Scooters or Seven Brew, and, stuff where it's like the sizes start getting pretty large, it's like, it just kind of stays at like, a double shot or something. But like at my shop, for instance, we use a triple shot for, a 12 ounce and a 16 ounce. Like, they get a triple. So it's more coffee focused.
Sure.
And for someone, it's like, they may not like that as much, and they'll be like, oh, I want to go where somewhere isn't as much like coffee focused, and there's like a little bit more milk and sugar. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's like, if you like you like what you like, hopefully, people who say they don't like coffee though, I'm like, well, you probably just haven't found one that you necessarily
Right.
like.
Right.
So it's like, it's cool to see all these places popping up. And, as far as like long term goes, it's like, everything kind of comes in waves. So I think as long as you have like a hospitality aspect and you're able to create an environment that's comfortable for people, and you do focus on things like community and, establishing like a good place for people in your local area, I think you can kind of ride those waves out. But it's like, there's trends that always pop up and, things go. And it's like, I've hopped on like certain things before, like trend wise, like as far as like equipment goes, because I'm like, oh, I think this would be awesome in the shop and it's marketed this way and it would go super well. And then it's like, oh, this absolutely tanked, So, I think just putting the experience first and making sure you have a good product. And I think that really helps highlight, the product you have, as long as the experience there is good and you want to be warm and friendly. So those are like the big focuses with places. And it's like, I wish I had more time to go to the places, because their hours always align, with
yours,
mine.
yeah.
But I get around to some sometimes. I went to Telva.
I love that place.
Yeah, I went there maybe 4 months ago and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like the food was great, the coffee was good, the atmosphere was great. It's like I would love to bring some people there and be like, hey, like check this out. Like it's such a cool idea, being in the nursery there and stuff. So it's awesome, and it's cool to have the options and the coffee culture that St. Louis does. Like for the size of the city itself, like we have a pretty big coffee scene.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
almost
we
like
do.
it's almost like the microbrewery scene. We've got a coffee shop almost on, or a boutique coffee shop on every corner now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one thing I've, at least just from my perspective, it seems like a lot of the coffee shop owners kind of like a lot of everybody kind of knows each other, and there doesn't seem to be like a lot of competition, at least that I'm aware of. Everybody seems pretty like friendly with each other. If of the handful of people that I know that are in the coffee industry, like everybody seems to be pretty friendly with each other and like collaborate on stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's just really cool that there's not that like.
Well, yeah, because if you look at them, the ones that are successful and the ones that are doing well are all like in their own little areas. So it's not like now that we've got Rosemary right there, like that's where I'm going to go. I'm not going to go shooting over into Kirkwood and hit up Telva or Taleo. I'm just going to go right to Rosemary. So it's not like they're cherry picking people from one another. You
You just kind of go what's convenient
right
to where you are. It's like several different coffee shops I go to, but it's like just depends on where I'm at that day. And
Exactly.
it's like, okay, I got an hour to kill. Let me go sit in here, open up the laptop and grab an Americano or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, it's
Same. Like, hey, where am I meeting at? Oh, we're in Chesterfield. Okay, probably going to go hit up Caldi's because I think that's the only coffee shop out there in the valley.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And then like, oh, we're meeting in Kirkwood. Okay, well, we've got our choice of Caldi's. We've got Taleo, or what's the other one over there? Is there another one? No, I think those are the only two. And then if it's Webster, hey, we've got Telvo. You've got 23 West. Like
got Annex,
Annex, yeah, Annex is a good one. I forgot about that one. Yeah,
great patio.
yeah,
Mhm.
great pet. Like again, it's all about
Yeah.
the vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. If we're gonna meet in the city, we got Omen, depending on where at in the city. Omen. When there's another one that I met. Blueprint, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you're in Brentwood, you've got Coma Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, got so many coffee shops.
Yeah. It's like even just you guys listing it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's them too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Now, you've been in this for 5 years now, or this is your 5th year, right? Have you dealt with any sort of burnout doing this?
I mean, I think like the first year or so, like I remember like the first 6 months, like it was just like no day off, and our hours were different then too. It was like 6 to 2. And I didn't take like any days off, and I was there open to close, and I just kind of like, I didn't feel the burnout necessarily, or, even though it was happening. But it was like, I don't know. There's just kind of like a moment where I was like, man, like, is this the right move? And you're dealing with, inconsistent like period. Like we weren't as busy as we are now.
Dude, you're so young too. Like
Right.
you see all your buddies like probably going to college.
Yeah.
And, like you're like seeing, oh man, they're going to all these parties and like getting the college experience. And
Yeah.
here you are, like, hanging out with your coffee roaster.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's like I'm opening up in the morning. It's like 5-something a.m. and I'm looking at people's stories, from the night before. And I'm like, man,
oh
like,
man, that looked fun.
what am I doing?
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Yeah, but
But
think
look,
about
look at you now.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
They're all
maybe-
probably coming out of college, getting started, and here you've already been doing this for 5 years.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And part of that too, it's like, we've grown over time, significantly, and it's everything is worked out, thankfully. But it was always like, okay, well, I've got to make it work because, when everybody gets out of school here and then they're going into their fields, if I'm still at this level, then it really hasn't worked out for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, I got to make something happen here, like, especially if I want to like be successful, personally. So it was just like dealing with the burnout, and it comes in waves. It's like talking with people like other entrepreneurs or people who are doing things and stuff like that. It's like you're never like, I think success at anything or like growing it's never just like a straight
Right.
line. It's always gonna
Peaks and valleys.
yeah, peaks and valleys, and hopefully you always want it to be on a steady incline. And you deal with that and you figure out what's going on and how to like troubleshoot certain problems and stuff. And that was my thing with the burnout, was like, how do I navigate this? What's burning me out? How do I fix that? Do I need to train more people to do this? How do I free up more of my time? What's causing that? Well, how do I fix that? That was that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, that resolved like a lot of it, and especially like having a vision on where I wanted to go. Cause like just kind of hopping into it, like there was so much time spent figuring out how to properly like manage and run and, get everything to be smooth, cause it's like, there's like, okay, well, I'm running out of this now, so I need to figure out where to get this from. And then, okay, this broke. Well, how do I fix that? And then, well, there's this now, and what, the hood's not working. And then I'm on the roof trying to figure out how to get the, hood working. So it's like just all these problems where it's like, now it's like, I know the place like the back of my hand when it comes to things, and like how to fix certain problems. And, I have good systems in place for making sure that, inventory is maintained, and, good systems where it's like, I think a lot of times, sometimes people will start a business and they end up taking on a lot of the work, like way too much workload when they have staff, and they don't realize that they can delegate it. And the only way you can delegate that is if you train people. And in order to train people and have like a consistent setup, and be able to bring, especially like in a restaurant, where it's like you have people in and out, and like it's never like fully a long-term thing for most people. Like a lot of our staff is like high school and college, and they'll move on to doing their careers later on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have staff cycling in and out over time. So how do I make sure like the training is consistent? It's like, okay, well, I need to create a system for that. And, and then that takes the workload off me, where it's like, I don't feel like I need to step in every couple of minutes because like, oh, well, I need to do it because I can do it right. You know what I mean? And they're like going to do it this way, or they're not like fully doing it the way I want, but I haven't communicated that to them that, this is how so figuring all that out, and I see it a lot with people. And I'm like, well, did you, communicate what your expectations were with, them? And they're like, oh, I'm like, so
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Jacob Gonzalez always said, there's no bad employees, just bad leaders.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to, taking that time to, like you said, get those processes in place. But I mean, I'm also sure that probably having that mission statement to fall back on, and whenever you are feeling that way, really helps. And you just be like, hey man, I'm gonna kind of now, because that's for me, like I've got my why, like the why I do what I do, and with my kids and everything, that like when I'm feeling like, because this business can get a little overwhelming sometimes and a little burnout, it happens almost every year around the same time. And it's just like, why am I doing this? Why am I just got to continue to remind myself why I do what I do? And I'm sure having that mission statement and everything to fall back on probably helps too.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I remember it was like year 1 or 2 I don't know. It was just like, it was around noon maybe or something. And we had nobody come in for like an hour and a half. And I just remember like everything was kind of done, as far as like prep and stuff goes, and nobody had come in. I was just sitting by the front there, just kind of waiting. And I was like, well, like, let me start figuring out some stuff that I can do that will help bring in more people, and then it's just like, well, what am I missing here? And what can I improve on, and it was just like, that was just where, like, it wasn't abnormal, like in terms of like the weekly sales or anything like that. Like it wasn't like we were declining or anything, but it was just this period where no one came in, and I was like, man, like, sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to get some people in the door.
Oh,
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing, what's there's that one coffee shop where you come in and dance for a free coffee?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard about that actually. No, but that's funny.
Yeah. I forget where, and I think it's somewhere here local that actually does it. But yeah, if you walk in, they have a sign if you like, and they've got like this red carpet rolled out. And
Yeah.
if you walk in and you dance all the way up to the register, you'll get a free coffee.
Oh, that's sweet. That's funny. That's awesome.
Just kind of, you know, lighten people's day. I mean, especially like you said in the morning, people, you know, they're starting your day with you. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to get that day started with a little dance.
Right. Right. No, that's an awesome idea. Like, you know, that's one cool thing about being able to go to other shops and stuff too, is you see things where it's like, oh, like, hey, recommend, you know, some music, and it's like, fill out a thing and you put it in the box, you know, or like, you see, oh, here's our employee, you know, you get all these different like cultures of, you know, people who are starting shops, and it's like, you get ideas for things, and it's cool to just experience, you know, something else like that. It's awesome.
How has social media played a role in the growth of your company?
Social media is huge, and I'm terrible at social media.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, especially like on a personal level, I'm just so like anti social media like myself. So when it comes to like having to do it it's such a double-edged thing, because there's so much potential, and there's never been a better time in history to, you know, have a business, in the sense of like social media is so lucrative, and it's like you're able to, but it's like, that is a huge struggling point for me, you know, and I'm like, and it's something I've learned more about, you know, as far as like, but I would love to be able to find like the perfect person who could be like, hey, like, I'll take
this is yours. Yeah.
That's what those high school and college kids,
I know,
employees are for.
I know.
Let them just take off with it and have fun with it.
I know. I'm like, I was like, I need to start TikTok and just kind of hand it over and be like, here guys, like, you know,
yours, you do this.
Yeah.
Just make me the admin or whatever, and let me clear it before you post it or something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, too, like, if you want to follow two that have a pretty decent social medias, or really good social medias. I know Omen Coffee has a really good one. I mean, it helps with Matt, you know, doing that, but, and then, you know, I keep mentioning it, but Rosemary, they've got a good one too. Cause they've same thing, young college kids and high school kids working there, and they just kind of let them have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, and so, no, they've all done a really good job of doing that on social media and things like that, and doing shout outs and like giveaways and things like that through the social media stuff, and just another way to just get your name out there. So,
yeah. I mean, especially with the algorithms, like, it's so like, you know, it's like, I'll consistently post and do things, but it's like, I know to stay within the algorithm and get the outreach, like I need to be putting out reels, you know, and I need to be following these trends.
Well, we'll have a few for you after this episode.
Okay. There we go.
For sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, I'm like, it's something I'm looking into more, you know, but it's hard, like, when I personally am not on it as much. And, you know, I have like a business suite, you know, where I can kind of get, you know, Instagram, Facebook notifications. So it's like, I'll see messages from people and stuff. And I don't even have Instagram fully downloaded on my phone. Like, I'll download it every now and then to check in or, you know, do something, and then I'll get rid of it. But I'm like, man, like I'll look at my following account for like proving out. I'm like, hey, this could be a lot better if I just, you know, started applying it.
Well, if you wanted to give a message to the people that come to your shop about you and who you are and where your shops come, what would you want to tell them?
Well, you know, I'd want to say that we focus on sourcing everything local at our shop. So any opportunity we get, you know, we try to source local dairy, local meat. Our bread is from St. Louis, or our pastries, you know, so we have a huge focus on like the local community. You know, we're also a specialty coffee roaster, and our focus is, you know, creating a digestible and like approachable environment for people to learn and try out some new coffee. And, you know, our focus is just making sure that's super hospitable, and you can come in and we have full breakfast and lunch menu. So just trying something new, you know.
What about you as a person?
As me as a person?
Yeah. Because that's what people, I mean, they're, you know, you got the shop, you got the atmosphere, but people go where they shop with the people they like, know, and trust. So what is it about you that people should come to your shop because of you? Put you on the spot.
Yeah. I don't know. I love what I do, you know, and that's something I've really learned over the time. And it's like, I enjoy creating good experiences for people. I love the work I do. I don't know. I have a passion for it that's developed, and it took me a while to kind of figure that out fully. And I don't know, it's anything I can do to create something better. It's a focus. This is a tough question.
Yeah, man. I mean, hospitality's in your blood, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That took like so long to figure out too. And I couldn't identify what it was exactly. But I don't know, once I realized, like, you know, it's something I genuinely enjoy doing, it really helped me kind of navigate things a little bit better, you know. And once I learned, especially like when you are dealing with people daily, and it's like, even like, people who might be having like a negative experience or something. It's like a lot of times people don't know how to like communicate properly, and it's like, well, let's figure this out, and we'll try to meet people where they are. And if you come at anything with like a hospitality approach, you can usually resolve it in a really positive manner.
Here, this might be one that might help you with that.
Okay.
So coffee is seen more of like just a daily ritual.
Mm-hmm.
What deeper role do you think it plays in people's lives?
Well, people don't put enough focus on, like, it is a daily ritual. It's like if you're taking the time out of your day to ensure that you're consuming it daily, I think it's worth knowing that, you're consuming not only good quality coffee, but like with our focus on our roasting and our sourcing, coffee is has such a dense history of how the sourcing and roasting has come. And it's like a lot of times, people have an expectation of it needs to be, under $5 for a cup of coffee, but really it's like super extraordinary that it is under that price when you look at all the work and transport, it comes. So it's like a farmer has to own the land, has to be able to grow the crop, maintain the crop, produce it at a good enough level to where it's specialty rated for us to bring it over. Then it's shipped from halfway around the world, and then it arrives green at an importer. We bring it in. A roaster has to select it, roast it to a specific level, and then it has to be, packaged, brought to a place, brewed, served by someone, and then, it's put in a cup, which also adds to the cost of things. And then it's like, it's somehow sold to you at $3,
Mm-hmm.
like that's amazing. And, for a long time, it wasn't really a great relationship between like roasters and farmers because, coffee pricing there wasn't any scoring or grading for the farmers to have any power to dictate like what their coffee is worth. And, when you're buying coffee from, different countries who have like these economies that aren't as prosperous as the US, like, for instance, like it's not an option in a lot of these countries for people to be like, oh, I don't like my job, I'm just going to, find something somewhere else to work. Like a lot of these farms are inherited for people, so it's like paying fair prices for coffee is a huge part of what we do. And it's like even the fair trade price, which is set by the largest exporter of coffee, Brazil, is low because at the rate they produce coffee isn't the same rate, and their economy isn't the same as a lot of these other countries. So, working directly with farms, which is a lot of what we do, and paying a price that they can find reasonable and actually helps them, sustain themselves, is a big focus for us. So I think, if it is going to be part of your daily ritual, knowing that what you're doing, where you're choosing to buy coffee from, and usually this is the case with a lot of specialty roasters, is that, you're buying something that's sustainable, you're buying something that's coming from a good relationship, something that's been cared for the entire process. And there's so much like marketing today about like, oh, this coffee's healthier and this, and a lot of that is just pure marketing to pull people in. But I think if you have the knowledge of knowing like that there was a good relationship throughout the process of you getting this coffee, and that it's sustainable, and that, you're doing something that can actually sustain itself in the future going forward, I think that can make a big part of your day versus like, oh, this is just like a quick consumption thing, and it's creating waste, at the same time, like, with these like instant, like Keurig individual packets and stuff. So I think like, not only do you know that the product initially is sourced better, but, maybe you get the relationship of going into your local roastery and, meeting someone or trying out new coffee and learning stuff. You get more involved with your community. So I think that's a huge part of, it's like, it can be more than a daily ritual, and if it is going to be, part of your daily ritual, I think it's worth finding something you really enjoy to drink,
Right.
Yeah,
So
man, that's awesome. I love everything you just said there.
Absolutely.
Tell there's a lot of passion
For
for
sure.
what you do.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, Jacob, this has been incredible having you in here, man. Is there anything we didn't get to chat about?
think we covered a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we get you out of here, we end the show the same way every time.
Play a little game. It's called the Tombstone Game. Here lies Jake. What's it say on your tombstone?
Ooh. Committed to the art of living a passionate and fulfilled life.
That's awesome.
That was really good.
That was
That's a
really
good one.
good.
We hear a lot of
Yeah,
those. And that was a
was
good.
good.
Okay.
That was really good.
Well, thanks again, Jake. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks to everybody at home that watched or listened to this episode. If you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button for us. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers on YouTube before the end of 2025. So help us hit that goal, hit that button, share the episode with a friend, hit that like button, comment what you thought below, and we will see you next time.